And I'm like, oh, it's just some music I'm working on just for myself. And he's like, this is really good. Like, what are you gonna do with it? I was like, well, I can't give it to Lecrae. Like, Lecrae would never do a track like this, and I can't give it to anybody else. So he was like, keep working on it. And then Lecrae started coming to the room. He's like, yo, that's fire. And then
I don't need nothing else. Every time I'm with you, yo, it's something else. It's a fact, and it's nothing else. Got your hand out, you don't even need a help. Oh, I don't need nothing else. Every time I'm with you, yo, it's something else. It's a fact, and it's nothing else. Got your hand out, you don't even need a help. Oh, that's right. I don't need nothing else. That's right.
Kingstream Entertainment.
Gawvi's an artist, you know what I mean? And you changed your name, obviously, but then you had the Gawvi Get 'Em tag. I started hearing that. And then all of a sudden, you're like a full-blown artist. First, it was like a DJ, like an EDM DJ vibe. And then it was like you're full-on, like, doing vocals and rapping all the way to the, you know, when the record with you and Lecrae came out, Fight For Me. I remember seeing that joint trending on the top 40 on Spotify. And I was like, yo, this is crazy, you know? And that was like one of my favorite records here. So tell me how that transition happened.
Yeah, the transition was wild, bro, and very easy, though. And I say that in a respectful manner for like people that have spent years trying to be an artist. In my life, I never thought I was going to be an artist. And my strongest thing to this day, even on all my albums, is just the music production, in my opinion. And that's where I feel good. I produce everything, and I'll have some help sometimes now. But yeah, the transition has been this. When I was like, let's think The Good Life of Triple E, that era, I think that's like 2013. I went to LA and I lived there for about 2.5 years. And in that 2.5 years, I got to learn a lot from this producer called Rodney Jerkins.
Oh, okay. I never knew that. Okay.
Yeah. And during that time, pop music is the #1 thing across the whole board. You're talking about David Guetta. You're talking about Justin Bieber just came out with that song, La 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 Love. And just pop music was so huge. And I'm diving into this world of pop music, and I'm seeing all these people in the studio too. Like I played pool with Justin Bieber at the Rodney Jerkins studio. I'm seeing Sierra. I'm seeing Britney Spears. And I'm in a whole world from Christian hip hop and a kid that grew up on hip hop, into this pop world that I just fell in love with, where I'm like, oh, you could do these chords with this and that. So as I'm growing and I'm learning, I ended up signing a deal with Reach Records right when I'm doing the album Rise to be a full-time producer. And I moved to Atlanta. When I moved to Atlanta, I'm doing nothing but trap hip hop songs. And it's all Lecrae, Andy, all that. And I have all this stuff about pop music and EDM in my mind that I just came from LA with. Guys, I want to do this though. And they're like, bruh, we're not about that life. You know, at that time, you would not, it was just straight trap music. So I'm producing it, but then on the side, on my own time, I'm producing these pop records by myself inside the room. And one day, Ben Washer, one of the head CEOs of Reach, he walks in the room and he's like, what is this? And I'm like, oh, it's just some music I'm working on just for myself. And he's like, this is really good. Like, what are you going to do with it? I was like, well, I can't give it to Lecrae. Like, Lecrae would never do a track like this, and I can't give it to anybody else. So he was like, keep working on it. And then Lecrae started coming to the room. He's like, yo, that's fire. And then little by little, some of that sound started coming into Reach. Like you could hear it in I Give In that I did on Lecrae's Anomaly song. Even You Can't Stop Me, the EDM that comes into that. Like I got to bring into that world. And one thing led to another where I'm like, I always would do vocal references for like Triple E or Andy. They would be like, yo, just do whatever on the mic when you send me the track. Because I would always have a vision, and that vision and that desire of pop music and trap and hip hop, all these elements that I just loved. I just started making the music for myself, and Lecrae and Ben, they believed in me, and they're like, bro, we think you should be an artist. But we didn't even know what artist meant at that time. DJ Mustard had just come out, huge, right? Diplo and Skrillex had just came out as Jack U, huge. So you have all these producers now doing their tags. So like, why don't you just be the producer that could produce EDM or hip hop, whatever you want, and just get people to feature on it. And if you want to be on it, be on it. So that's why you hear my first album, We Belong, bunch of EDM style, or just, it's everywhere actually. And I have a lot of features, and it's some of me. And it's just me experimenting, like, I don't know what this artist world is. I'm trying to figure it out. I'm just making music that I enjoy at the moment, and I'm trying to satisfy everyone. Quickly, right after that, I realized that wasn't the sound I wanted to go with. And then you start hearing the sound changing when I did my EP 954, then Panorama, and now you hear Who I Am on Heathen album.
That's dope, man. So let me ask you this. I'm gonna kind of geek out for a minute. What is your DAW of choice?
Logic. So I started off with Fruity Loops at first. Years with Fruity Loops.
Okay. So as a producer that you're on Logic, clearly you can play. You said you grew up playing drums and keys. For producers that are looking to get into this, or maybe artists that are producers, how important would you say learning music theory is? Is that something that like is super crucial, or do you think somebody could just learn the very basics, or like what is the threshold, would you say, you need to understand the theory of music so you could be good enough?
If this was like 7 years ago, I would say music theory. Man, I've seen some wild stuff nowadays. Dudes that just picked up a laptop for the first time and downloaded Logic or Fruity Loops just made the #1 song on the radio. So my desire as a producer is to be like, yeah, get some music theory under your belt. It's definitely gonna help. But at this point, with all the technology that we have and all the cheat codes that there is now, dudes just need a good ear. Like, you got to know what sounds dope. And that's a crucial thing, though, because I've heard a lot of people that they have the worst pitch in their ear, and you're like, do this, la, and they go, ah. Like, stop. Just, it's not for you, you know?
Yeah.
But if you could keep a tone, la, 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 okay, la, that could take you a long mile. And I don't know, it's different now, bro. You know. Would you say if somebody can learn like the basics of all this, not playing all the scales, but just like, okay, a major key, a minor key, the relative major minor, what is a semitone, the pitch up and pitch down samples, and how to go to the relative, and really just that, like now with all the chord, MIDI chord converters and all the samples on Splice, you think that just knowing the basics of the keys, the major and minor scales is enough? Here's the difference. I think today you're gonna know quickly who's a beat maker and who's a producer. Okay. There's a major difference between those two. So a beat maker, they'll be able to get like the drums and they could chop up a sample on Splice, and it's gonna sound dope. A producer is gonna be able to take that Splice sample if they really needed to take it, chop it up in a different way, or recreate it, and then know how to give a beat some space for vocals, and know when to elevate it into a moment where it's like, hey, the bridge is about to come up, so now let's take out some sounds and make it impactful. Or, you know what I'm saying? Like, there's going to be you can see what's a huge difference between a beat maker and a producer now, Yeah, and I would even take it a step further. I would say whether somebody is chopping or playing on top of themselves, I would take it a step further and say that if we go back and we look at, Quincy Jones on Thriller, right? Like, he wasn't in there playing every instrument, right? And so a lot of producers are like, oh, I gotta play the chords myself, and I gotta punch out the... Well, if you look at like historically amazing producers pre-hip hop, they weren't necessarily composing and playing the music. They were able to orchestrate and piece it together. So I would say they, like, a great producer, like you said, has the ear and the ability to take a project from start to finish, whether or not
they're using loops or not using loops, MIDI packs or not MIDI packs, sending stuff out to musicians or not sending stuff out to musicians. But it's really in the arrangement, the building the tension of the record, the release of the, like all those types of things. I think regardless of the tools can take a record to the finish line. You know what I mean?
For sure, yeah.
Reporting to you live from New York City, from the borough of Brooklyn, all the way to the shores of the West Coast. If it ain't King's dream, it ain't no dream.
Hey yo,
God always.
We in the city, New York City, ain't no telling what you might see. Bronx up to Queens, Manhattan, rockin' with me. Moving through the borough, king, dreaming with my brethren. I might buy a Yankee fitted cap, and I don't watch baseball. Living like I'm crazy. If the mission didn't pertain me, I'd be trying to chase the bag. Get a Billy like I'm Jay-Z. But I'm here because he saved me since that day he spoke the flame and he gave